Welcome to Alabama Manufacturing Now, hosted by the Alabama Training Network, a podcast where we cover a wide array of challenges, solutions, and innovations for manufacturers and businesses.
We're your hosts, Whitney Barlow
and Paige Caulfield.
Alabama Training Network, powered by the Alabama Community College System, built for training, driven by workforce.
Welcome back to Alabama Manufacturing Now. We're here with our special guest, Executive Director, Keith Phillips. Keith, so happy to have you here today.
Hey, proud to be here. I finally made a podcast.
Yeah, we're so excited.
We're so excited. We're going to jump right in, if you don't mind. But just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your day-to-day and kind of what you do with the training network.
Sure. Well, that's a good question. Probably a lot of people wonder what to do every day. From the standpoint of the Alabama Training Network, it's, I've been fortunate, hired on in 2009 as a local director in Eufaula, Alabama for one of our, what was a center. And over time, I've been fortunate to be director of operations and now executive director. So from the standpoint of what I really focus on is making sure that the organization is progressing and growing, looking for opportunities to expand, to make sure we're supporting our staff and most importantly, supporting the industry that we provide training and technical assistance for, and that the product that we deliver, the services we deliver, is in demand and meeting the needs of industry. And we're blessed with a fantastic staff just across the. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
There's not a lot, but there are people who provide training in the state, and I think the training network, our specialty that keeps companies coming back to us, is the people. It's about relationships, but also about delivering services that have an impact on their business.
Absolutely. So with that being said, you know that 2026 is a milestone year with our name change. We went from Alabama Technology Network to now Alabama Training Network. So what does that change mean to ATN and the community?
Well, one, it's a message. It's an internal and external message. Technology had become a little bit of a challenge. Years ago, when I first started in 2009, a lot of people thought we were a Microsoft training company. And then technology today, people look at that and think thought we were maybe fiber optics networking.
Yeah.
So the training network is really, that in itself really simplifies the messaging on what we do. And we're a network of people of staff who provide training and technical assistance around the state. And being a part of the Alabama Community College System, it also, over the last few years, we've been involved in working with colleges, and what's really become is a true training network where we're involved with the colleges and helping them meet the demands and needs of local business and industry, but to also industry who uses us, and we have these different teams and skill sets on those teams that we deliver services in. They look at that network part of it and say, okay, this is more than just industrial maintenance and technology, or more than just continual improvement. It's a network of trainers.
Right.
And that's the idea. It allows us to really meet the demand statewide and communicate to anybody when they look at our name, a little bit better understanding of who we are.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
I think that that's a really good point, is that we, because we're part of the community college system, you have the ability to go from straight out of high school all the way into upskilling. I guess they would be upscaled because they would increase in pay, but we would be upskilling upskilling the worker. So what about at ATN, we've done supply chain, we've introduced ag and food services. They added in LMD, which is how I think we've talked about
Leadership Management Development.
Leadership Management Development. That's how I came in originally. So what other successes and opportunities do you see on the forefront of ATN?
So, there's, we can talk industry first. Let's talk about industry sectors. So we're, our specialty is serving manufacturers in the state. And that kind of comes with the territory of being the state's manufacturing extension partnership, which, people watching this podcast, and sometimes we have to scratch our head too. What is the MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership? But it's a federal program, and every state has one, and ATN is Alabama's MEP. So, and the focus of that manufacturing extension partnership is obviously supporting medium and small size and large manufacturers in the state. When I look at where ATN is and kind of where we're expanding technology, although we are no longer technology as our middle name, we're still involved in technology. You're looking at what's happening with automation, robotics, things in manufacturing. Uh, that's one of the skills that we have is helping companies, if they are implementing new technology, come in and help them get their workforce upskilled and ready for the new technology and continual improvement from the standpoint of helping them improve their lean processes, or maybe it's their ISO. So that's part of it. Industry-wise, we're seeing an uptick in the state. Automotive has been huge for Alabama from a standpoint of economic development and job opportunities for individuals in the state, supported a lot of families. But we're seeing obviously an increase in defense. And that's going to give, you talked about the supply chain development, the defense expansion in the state is going to give some smaller size companies the opportunity to bid on contract work to support that growth. And it's going to bring a lot of new people to the state. It's going to bring a lot of new companies, manufacturers in particular, to the state. So we're prepared for that. Again, our specialty is going in and helping those companies kind of get prepared, if it's through an ISO implementation or an internal audit there, to help them prepare to bid on those type contracts. But I think, technology, although we took it out of our middle name, is still a big part of things that we've got to focus on. One of the conversations that we've kind of had is, what's AI going to do? And AI is already there. And so I think one of the things for small and medium-sized companies that we think about is conducting an AI readiness assessment and moving in that direction. We don't do that today, but I think that's something that we've had a few small internal conversations on how do we start to prepare for that. But I think that is in demand. And then, the other side of what we're seeing, and this is true for every industry sector, the LMD, the leadership management development that we do, that impacts all industry sectors in the state. So looking at, how do we branch out beyond manufacturing? And that's one of the areas where I see an opportunity there for us to fill a void that exists as it relates to good quality training for all industry sectors. And, we've hired someone who doesn't have a manufacturing background to kind of specialize. I'm talking to you guys, you'll know that. But it's, the skill set there, we think that was an intentional hire to expand what we do in LMD to serve more industry outside of manufacturing in the state.
I think that's really important because when you talk about, we've had economic developers on here, and when you talk to them, they're all about recruiting industry in, but your quality of life is so important. So your hospitals, your food, all of those components of also industry, not necessarily manufacturing, play a key role in a community. And so I think that's great that that's one place that we're looking to how to invest in them and be able to at least bring some of our training to their availability.
Hospitalities and other.
Hospitality, yeah.
Well, even the chambers,
Yes.
the chambers and I know we have a great relationship with the Alabama Chamber Commerce Association of Alabama, and we have a great relationship with a lot of local chambers that do both chamber and economic development. That's been important to us. And I think, we've been intentional in trying to develop additional relationships with industry representatives, trade groups, associations around the state. And we have a tremendous group of those who serve on our advisory council, Manufacturer Alabama, Business Council of Alabama, EDAA, Alabama Automotive Manufacturers Association, EDA being the Economic Development Association of Alabama. I give them proper title as well. But, we have a great group of those, if you will, trade associations who supports what we do. And like I said, that, that's part of how we put our message out there and reach audiences that might not be aware of what we do and who we are, is having those folks who understand us more and help advocate for us in terms of, hey, if you had that need, call ATN.
Yeah.
I think that's a really huge benefit. Now, there are other, back to the community college, Paige and I, in the past year, have had the opportunity to see some of the cool things that the Innovation Center is doing. We, of course, Skills for Success, and we talked about communities and all those associations that that we work with. The network that it creates is all about the community, and at the heart of the community is education. And I think that's one of the brilliant things when the community college system was created in the state of Alabama is how they are in just about every pocket of the state.
Yes.
Which allows for us to also be in every pocket of the state because our offices are mainly in those community college. So in your other hats that you wear through the system, how do you see that really evolving and all of us working together to really enhance the communities, which is ultimately going to help the state?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, and it really is. When you talk about the other hats that I wear, one of the priorities is that we function as a system, and that means not only as an entity that provides education and workforce training in all the communities of Alabama. You think about the community college system, 24 community colleges, 130 locations. We're in everyone's community, and we are the largest provider of education and workforce training in the whole state. 180 plus thousand students served annually. When you look at that network, we serve those communities, the business and the industry in those communities, but in particular, we serve those individuals, those families, those students that have an opportunity. Not everyone's cut out, whether it be their desire, financially, economically, or whatever the case may be, to leave their community to go for an education. And that's the beauty about our college system is that we serve those communities, we serve those students, and we serve them well. And it's, financially, we're the best deal in the state.
Yes, by far.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is if they're looking at the career options that are available through their education and training at a community college, those jobs are high demand, high wage jobs. And all of our programs align to that. So when you roll all that back together, when you look at the Alabama Training Network and the community colleges, we serve everyone from adult ed students to the incumbent worker who needs upskilling and support those industries. So it really, being in the community college system, it's a full, complete package from cradle to grave, and everybody's heard that used, from cradle to grave of supporting students, families, and industry in every community in the state.
So if I'm a student and I'm trying to figure out how to get to a career the quickest way possible, because obviously I need to make an income, a good income, what does that timeline look like? If I chose to go to a community college and I was right out of high school, what's that timeline where I can get a job?
It's depending on where you're, let me back up and start over on that. And I don't mean start over in recording. That there's a lot to be said about that. It really depends on your pathway. And there's entrances. If you want to look at it like a pathway being a highway, there's on-ramps everywhere. And there's exit ramps for you to get back off and upskill and get back on the highway. So that depends. You can start in K-12 with dual enrollment. And the goal with dual enrollment, and that is, if you talk about a true financial economic
gosh, yes.
That's huge.
Oh, yes, it is.
We actually have, there'll be seniors, graduating high school seniors who will walk across stage and get their high school diploma and their 2-year associates at the same time.
That is awesome.
That's the best deal in town.
Yeah.
But I say all that, if you're that student, dual enrollment is one way, and that's just through your normal high school. For your normal 4-year pathway through high school and dually enrolled. There's one way, and you graduate high school with a career, with a skill, 2-year associates, or you may not have the 2-year associates. Your goal may have been to get a short-term or long-term certificate, and you took a couple semesters worth of college classes in one of the CTE career technical education courses, for instance, welding. And you go right to work out of high school. Better yet, what we're seeing is, and I'll come back to the rest, what we're seeing is the expansion of work-based learning also, where industry is beginning to look at hiring students and giving them opportunities based on certain age requirements in high school and while they're going to college, so that they can retain those individuals and that skill set when they complete. So you may enter the workforce while you're in high school, certainly after high school, and at a community college, and going through your education, industry's beginning to recruit the talent that they need through work-based learning. Now,
Yeah.
let's back up. The other thing is what we've done, what the community college system has done through the Innovation Center with Skills for Success. Not everyone plans to go to college. And the reason the Skills for Success courses through the Innovation Center were invented was we started looking at the data, and I think it's around 46% of the graduating seniors every year were not seeking post-secondary education. And that percentage, that's about 23,000 high school seniors. And that percentage was beginning to increase. So, the worst thing that can happen for our state from a workforce development and economic development is to have a population of 18 to 25-year-olds without a skill and able to have a meaningful wage and provide fill a meaningful job. So we started developing, I say we, Innovation Center is part of what I do as Deputy Chancellor of Workforce under the community college system. Tremendous staff of folks on the Innovation Center. But one of the things that they started to do is help our colleges by building in-demand courses based on what industry is telling them that they need, so that high school senior or someone who had already graduated high school and really didn't have a skill, was underemployed, not employed, or underskilled, had a quick way of getting a credential that was in demand.
Yeah.
And so to your point, going back to your original question, someone could get that in as little as 80 hours.
Wow.
But, and the beauty of it is they don't have to come to a campus.
Yeah.
They can take the theory here and then show up for a lab, and that's competency-based education. Take the knowledge that you gain through theory and then apply it in a lab, prove that you've mastered it. So that's another pathway. Getting long on this answer.
No, I think it's great information.
And I
It's
think
something
that's
that
where a
people
lot
need
of
to know.
people have questions.
Yes.
And that's where technology plays such an important role, is through the theory and through the lab. And the lab could actually be the piece of equipment or what have you, or it also can be a simulator or VR, the virtual reality component. And it is very similar. So when you're then exposed or you're hired on by a company, I think that's where people are beginning to understand technology is not the enemy. It is a great dovetail for us to be able to train.
It supports it. Yes, it's a supporting tool that can help let a student prove that they've mastered concept.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and like I said, again, that's another pathway. And then you got the traditional pathway where you come and enroll for a short-term, long-term, or a 2-year associate's degree.
Okay.
So
there are obviously many different pathways. I mean, you can pretty much go as fast as you want to go, or you can slow it down, like you were mentioning earlier, get on the highway and you can take a pit stop, get back on.
Well, and a lot of people, and one of the last times I looked at the data, but the average age of the community college student, was at one time it was like 26, 27. Now I think it's around 23, 24 years old. So what that really means is we have a lot of students that our community colleges serve that may have gotten out, and life happens for whatever reason, may have gotten down the road a piece and realized, hey, I need to go back to college. I need to get an education and obtain some skill and credentials where it will help me with basically my standing in life financially with my family. So you look at that, and a lot of our students that we serve are not always full-time. They work, and they can only take 1 or 2 courses as they have to provide for their family. So you look at that, and I go back to the beauty of the community college system is how we're so conveniently located to communities across the state, and the broad range of offerings that we have that really lead to meaningful employment, meaningful credentials.
Yeah.
It's such a great story for the state of Alabama. And I think that a lot of people in the state, when we are at events and they're asked, how many of you attended or have received a degree from a community college, it's over 50 to 60% of the room stands up, which shows you a lot of the impact that it does. In the Alabama Training Network, I think one thing we haven't ever discussed is the certificates that you can obtain from us. So you go through the system, you receive associate's degree and what have you. You go up and work in manufacturing, and you can take lean classes, and you see those certificates, and that's a great accountability and pride that it instills in that employee and potential raises.
Yes.
So it's a whole component. So let's go back to the defense. We have is from the entire state. I mean, there's not much of this state that's now not covered with defense. So for the Alabama Training Network and any other hats that you wear, the community college system that you want to run, how do you see that really expanding 2026 and beyond with all of our components?
Well, you've said it. It touches every corner of our state, and it's only going to increase. Let's look at what's happening with the relocation of the U.S. Space Command to Huntsville, and if you look at that, they're projecting 30,000 new jobs with that. There's already a strong cluster of industry or defense industry manufacturers in that region that we're serving now, and they're ramping up for hiring. So, we'll be a part of that because a lot of times the Alabama Training Network is called in is when a company has brought on new staff and they need to make sure that they're not positioned to internally provide the training. And they need an external person to come in and upskill them fast. And that's our model I think that's important to talk about from the standpoint of how does the Alabama Training Network train? I like to tell everybody we're anywhere from 4 hours to 5 days, depending on what the training is and which team is in there doing the training and how that course is built out. And we'll customize however. But we're not there for weeks on end.
Right.
When we start a training, it's either a 4-hour training or it's something that's done in 16, 24, 32, or 40 hours, and we're out because we know industry has to produce.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we deliver our model.
And it's quality training.
It is quality training. And in that quality training, we are intentional in that with a survey process where the companies are independently surveyed, and it allows them to give a feedback to us through a third party on how well we did on meeting the mark. And I think the other thing is not unique, but I think it is instrumental in our success is the front end conversations with companies. And I've said this over and over and over. There's not a company in Alabama that is training for the sake of training. There's a reason.
Yeah.
And we need to know that reason going in because we can be successful if we understand the reason. So that's the front end questions we're going to ask when we meet with a company and they express an interest in our training. But going back to your question, defense, it is going to technology. That's one of the things that's going to be. There's some skills, when you talk about manufacturing in general, some of your processes, some of your concepts are going to be consistent regardless of what. Mechanical drive is a mechanical drive. A PLC is a PLC. But some of the technology that's going to be there, the incorporation of cobots and automation and robots, those things are going to continue to expand. And then when you start to look at how AI is involved, data analytics, we've talked about industrial maintenance and technology. We'll talk about preventative maintenance and through technology and AI, you'll start to see predictive maintenance because you're capturing a lot of analytics on a piece of machine and it's starting to tell you when to expect something's going to happen. So you're not shutting down because something just broke. You're seeing it in the future when it's going to happen and you're having, limiting the amount of time that you're going to be down.
Right.
So those are some of the things.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I need it to help predict.
What do you need to help it predict?
Just think about how beautiful that would be if we could have it predict things, straight out for us.
Yeah. I'm like, get AI to predict me some lottery numbers soon.
Oh, that's correct. I believe that'll put you in prison.
So probably. So ATN,
Yes.
we have quality training. We have been hiring a lot lately. There seems to be no sign of us slowing down. How do we ensure that our trainers who are going into industry to these companies, how do we ensure that we are up to date on the latest trends?
Well, and the hiring is part of that process. I think, we have a great staff. 1,200, 1,300 years worth of manufacturing industry experience and growing
Yep.
across the state.
Mhm.
So hiring new people, the one thing that does, it allows us to bring in additional skill sets that maybe we don't have.
Right.
And the ability for that new person to be mentored and work with someone who might have experiences at a different level.
Mhm.
Not saying that it's a higher level, but different experiences to be able to grow. Both of them will grow from being involved with
Yeah.
each other. So I think that's important for sustainability for us from the standpoint of the skills and talents that we have, and how we continue to grow as an organization.
Mhm.
And then the other side of that is it's what new skills evaluating that are out there that we don't have that's relevant that we need to be focused on. And I think that's we went out with ag and food and found someone who had a tremendous amount of credentials in that industry sector. And I think we have to look at that down the road, and we're starting. I mentioned data analytics. That's going to be big for small and medium-sized companies to understand how to interpret data
Mhm.
and review data, because that if you're going with AI, that's going to be a big part of that. So I think we have to look at how do we help those companies, find a comfort level, and the technology cost has come down. That's the other thing. I'm sort of harping on technology, even though we just took it out of our name. Yeah,
We're training the
yeah,
technology.
that's right.
Right.
We're not the technology.
But what we saw during the pandemic was, absenteeism was high.
Mhm.
And you had a lot of companies who looked at, okay, I have a high rate of absenteeism in my company, especially in companies where it's manual processes, low skill,
Right.
jobs, and they had absenteeism there, and they were like, I can't rely on the workforce today,
Mhm.
so how do I invest in
Right.
automation? At the time, everyone was trying to figure that out. So what you've seen post-pandemic is cost has started to come down. The return on investment for companies to make in automation is coming down. So we're going to see more automation. Small, medium-sized companies are going to have to make some adoptions of or adapt to technology to remain competitive. So I think that's going to be an area we're going to have to focus on. The other thing I would challenge everyone on, if you're an industry person, is treat the adoption of technology like we try to convince companies, and they do. Most of them have a good culture of lean. Lean has never been about a headcount reduction.
Right.
Lean is about improving your processes so that you can free someone up to do more value-added work.
Right.
Yes.
If you have a worker today who might be marginally skilled,
Mhm.
but they have good work ethic,
Correct.
they have all the soft skills. They show up on time. They're not absent from work. They get along well with others. Invest in them, because the talent pipeline is tough.
Mhm.
And all those characteristics of soft skills means that person is trainable. And
Correct.
so invest in your workforce, and Alabama Training Network would be glad to come in and help.
I think that's a great point, because
Yeah.
that's what we see is a lot because of the workforce pool in Alabama. You're pulling and you get some really good employees, and so you want to keep them, and obviously keeping as you promote more salary, more investment.
Yes.
But they don't always have that skill to move to the next level.
Mhm.
Sometimes they are excellent at the actual hard skill, but the soft skill they lack, or vice versa. And so that is where we come in, and it's tremendous. The other thing that you mentioned, and I thought that was a really good point, was, and you see that with the MVP, is a lot of companies. Some of our states are a lot more rural. I mean, Alabama's pretty rural,
Yes.
but you don't realize how rural some states are until you start hearing some of their stories and implementing technology in these small to medium manufacturers. And they realize that that job was never really worth the $10, $12, $13, $14 an hour that
Mhm.
individual was paying. That person was really worth more.
Yeah.
And the machine can do that. One of the ones we saw was in New Mexico. They made tile, the clay tile
Yeah.
as on the roofs.
Mhm.
That is a very monotonous, like steady job. And they have a 3D printer and a machine that does it now. And the individual that was doing that has now been promoted with like a $6 raise, and they're doing something else. But the company only had like 20 people working in it, and they were petrified to bring in the machine, thinking the machine was going to take. I think that's what people aren't realizing. Is the machine doesn't take the job of those higher pays, because you can't ever replace a human's mind.
Correct.
Now I'm not
And machines break all the time.
They do. And I mean, I like AI just like the next person, but it's not a human's brain.
Well, no, and I think people need to not be fearful of AI. I mean, it's here. Learn how to adopt to and use it as a tool, and that's important. It is a tool, but a skilled person will never be replaced by AI.
No.
I mean, skilled is one of those things. Is no one can take that from you,
Right.
And so having a skill, a meaningful skill, is irreplaceable, and it's never too late to get that skill.
Yes.
I think I go back to the conversation about the community college system. I mean, that's if you feel like your skills are being threatened by technology or AI, there's opportunities for you at our community colleges, and it goes back to your question. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity available there, and we hadn't touched on workforce Pell that's coming down the pipe, which is one of those things our colleges will be able to offer. Someone might financially qualify for workforce Pell and not have a cost in a rapid non-credit training that's paid for through workforce Pell, and they and the criteria for that, for the programs that the colleges will offer, is aligned to outcomes for the student. That's going to make sure that we're not offering just something that gets them trained. It's got to have a job, and that's a measurable metric that the federal U.S. Department of Ed is going to put on those dollars that are used for training individuals who qualify for workforce Pell.
I think that brings back the whole community concept, is that you're training for what's there in your community, which you we'd love to grow up and work and play and live and not have to drive hours to go to a job that you can support your family on. Be able to do that.
Well, and I know this is Alabama Training Network conversation, but I think about the programs that we offer at the community college system, and we're the cornerstone for economic development in all those communities. Because, I mean, you look at recently there was Eli Lilly announcement in Huntsville, $6.4 billion investment. And one of the things that came out of that in one of their final site visits was they wanted to see one of the local colleges' welding program. They wanted to see their industrial maintenance program and their process tech program. And part of that was when they projected the numbers of people that would be employed to actually build the facility that Eli Lilly is going to invest in there in that community, there's over 3,000 jobs. They wanted to know that there was a welding program that would support keeping people trained to build the facility.
Right.
And then they wanted to see the programs that's going to keep their operation, their process running every day. So that's one of those things. Yeah, that's Huntsville. Same's true in Dothan. Same's true in Enterprise, Laverne, LBW's area down in Andalusia. It's true at Evergreen, at every college, small community or large. We're really the kind of a vital part of economic development.
Oh, completely. Because you have local people working there. You have local people going to school there.
Tax base, families, schools,
It's
healthcare.
Yes.
We health sciences, healthcare. If the community college was not involved in health sciences, providing training for nurses, think about what impact that would have on every hospital. It already has an impact on rural areas. That there's a lot of. I'm not getting too deep in the weeds on what's happening with rural health care, but those rural hospitals that in some places they've lost their hospital. The viability of some communities as it relates to being able to economically recruit industry is very dependent on, is there a hospital? And how far is the hospital?
Right.
And that providing that workforce by our colleges is so critical. And I challenge you to question any hospital administrator on how important that is, and they'll tell you.
Well, because, I mean, when you have a manufacturing facility, one of our Maudie winners, is in the Mobile area, but they're not like right there in Mobile. And so to be able to get to a facility if you have an injury, God forbid,
Yeah.
and to make sure you save a life, that's huge on both sides of the spectrum, both on the liability side as well as the safety side. But I think that goes to, yes, we do. I mean, this podcast is hosted by Alabama Training Network, but we are part of the community
Yeah.
college
Correct.
system, and it's one system. And I think that dovetail of workforce and how we move through the state of Alabama and that you can just plug in, that is such a key component that sometimes I feel gets overlooked with a lot of people of understanding. It's like when you get up every day, you do all the things that you do to get ready, but you don't really sit back and realize it is because of this I was successful in the day. And I trying to put a spotlight, which is why I'm so glad that you finally graced us with his presence, that to really talk about that component and how all that streamlines together.
Yeah, you don't have workforce without education, and you don't have economic development without both education and workforce. So I think that it's the proverbial three-legged stool. You got to have all three of those for a community to thrive. And I'm an advocate for what we do at the community college system and the Alabama Training Network, and that's the world that we live in, and that I feel like we serve well. And the key to our success, whether it's Alabama Training Network or our colleges, is the voice of the customer, and the customer is pretty broad. It's our K-12 students, it's our dual enrollment students, it's their administration. It is the normal traditional student we think about. It's the adult ed student. Community college serves incarcerated students. Is hopefully one day that they're going to come out and they're going to have a skill to go to work. But it's the incumbent worker. It's also the local business and industry, not just the manufacturer, but local retail. That's important. So it's really it's like this full cycle for a whole community. And I go back to that, and again, I'll stand by what I've said. The community colleges that serve these Alabama communities, they're vital.
Yeah.
Absolutely vital. And
You just got to impact one person, and that impact, that ripple that we give, it's when you really think about the influx of money from each one of those components you just mentioned. The incarcerated that's back out into society, and they're now being able to support their family. Their family may be in foster. They now get their children back. Like, you're changing lives in every component that the community college system does. And it's really impactful to know that the Alabama Training Network is a small component of that. The hospitals you talked about in defense, when we're doing LMD, leadership management, or you're doing lean with just cleaning that stuff up and helping just that little bit. When you leave that company and you hear afterwards from HR, or even you see someone and you hear how just one comment really transformed how they worked, that's when you know you're making a difference.
It's impactful, and sometimes impacts isn't always dollar signs.
Correct.
Yep.
So even though that's what a lot of people want to see it by.
Yeah.
Well, so you brought it up. The community college system, we had an economic impact study, $8.6 billion impact on the state of Alabama. I can't say it enough. I think, my wife and I, we have a son, took advantage of dual enrollment. That saved us 2 years worth of college.
Yes.
And that's available, and thanks to our governor and our legislators for supporting everything that we do at the Alabama Community College system, including increasing dual enrollment, including increasing funding for our colleges, for their O&M budgets, for supporting programs like the Innovation Center, and let's be honest, supporting the Alabama Training Network.
Yeah. Yes. So if you had we always ask our, I almost say clients, but we do ask that too. We always ask our guests, if you had a crystal ball and you could look into the future in a year, where would you like to see Alabama Training Network or any of the components that you're working on?
That's a great question. Well, I can tell you, I can for certain tell you a direction that we're going. It was brought up about the certificates that our individuals that go through our training get. One of the things that I'm very interested in is being able to provide a transcript type credential.
Yes.
And we're, if you look at the Alabama Talent Triad, we have 120 plus industry recognized credentials by nature of just what we do every day. That's out there in the Alabama Talent Triad for individuals to have that credential. But through the community college system, and as they are working on some things that I'm very interested in, the companies that we train for value our training, or else they wouldn't keep calling us, right?
Right.
We typically serve around 300, sometimes 350 or more unique manufacturers every year. And if you pull in the non-manufacturers, that number goes up, obviously, pretty significantly. So it's obvious that those companies value what we do for them, and that's great. And the individuals at those companies benefit from their training, and they get a certificate. A lot of times the company would want to maintain that in a personnel file. So what we want to be able to do is award a credential to the individual. Still valuable to the company, but let's give the individual the credential. So one of the things I hope to get accomplished over the next year is to implement basically the issuing of credentials to individuals and being able to record that in a permanent record style.
Would be amazing.
Yeah, I think it's important to us. And again, I go back to, we're the transition to the training network. The idea is that, we're evolving to be more than we were last year. And I think if you ask me the question a year from now, having that credential registry in the works is going to be important in issuing those credentials. The other side of this is it's not so much about change, but it's more so about making sure that we're still meeting the needs of industry, regardless of what change comes, is to not let trying to make changes for the sake of change drive decisions, but changing and adding value to what we do to serve the industry in the state. So that's like a beauty queen answer and world peace. But I think that's important is not get caught up in change for the sake of change. Let's do meaningful change. And I do think the credential is part of meaningful change.
I think that's an excellent thing, because when you interview for jobs, they ask specific questions. And if you're in one role, but you're trying to grow into another role, how do you display that? How do you show that? How do you show that you're qualified to do that? And this is such a great way to show you're taking the steps to better yourselves, which is, again, what this whole system's about.
Yep. There's another thing that I forgot, and I'm going to point to Paige. Paige helped us kind of phrase this. RAISE. RAISE, Rapid Advancement in Skills Education. So we've been working with the Innovation Center. Paige came up with that.
You did?
She did. Yeah. We've been working with the Innovation Center to help co-develop some skills for success courses, in particular for manufacturing, and that's the world that we have specialized in. And we're actually have piloted a couple of those, and we're looking to, I think we got some meetings coming up on future RAISE courses that we're going to co-develop with the Innovation Center. And that's a different delivery mechanism than what we typically do. But I go back to this, it's, we're all about customizing and accommodating the schedule of business and industry. This will allow us to do that, but also accommodate, the student in a little bit different fashion.
I love that. And I love that you came up with the acronym.
Oh, you knew that.
I did not know you came up. See, I'm so proud you're my co-host. It's just great.
It was great. It was a no-brainer when she came up.
It really was. I mean, I don't know. It was weird. We were all on a call, and I was just like, spit it out. I don't know.
See? And then there's some days, Keith, where she and I are beating our heads on the desk trying to come up with just one little tiny something. So
every days are different.
Well, so now, is there anything that you'd like to leave us with? I feel like you did then. I feel like we should.
So let me ask it this as we end. If you had advice for struggling companies out there who need workforce training or just resources, what advice would you give them?
One, don't wait.
Okay.
Yeah, don't wait. And we have such a plethora of experience on our team is that it's a tremendous advantage, and that I think that's the other thing is we will bring the right resource. It doesn't matter where they are in the state.
Yep.
Wherever the company is, that's where we're going to be. And we, I failed to say, 99% of what we do is at the company. And we train in their facility, a lot of times sometimes on their equipment, but we also have mobile equipment we'll bring in and train that is identical to what's on the floor. But don't wait. I think, if you're feeling the need that struggling. The worst thing that happens, and we've had this happen, where a company, and it's happened multiple times, a company waited and they knew they were in trouble. And I say in trouble. Well, not every company we work with is in trouble. That don't mean to imply that at all.
Right.
But we've had companies who waited too long. And at that point, recovering and trying to get back, for them, it's, usually it's a bottom line conversation. If they are questioning that and they've waited too long, it's a really dollars and cents, black or red type decision. And it's easier to have that conversation whenever you're not trying to figure out how to keep the lights on, or your productivity has dropped off because you knew you had some retention problems and you had so much churn with your workforce. Let us come in and help you look at your processes. How can we help you suggest and implement some things for employee retention or recruitment? And you mentioned it earlier, LMD or any of our training. I did a little study on employee retention, and investing in training, meaningful training, is one of the greatest ways companies can retain their talent.
It's actually ranks higher than their salaries.
Yes. Yeah, and enjoying who they work for. And the other side of that I think the data said, I forget, I think it's 60% of the people who leave their job state that it was because of their supervisor. And so I mean, I'm not pushing LMD, but that's certainly one of the things we do.
Paige and I do not have that problem.
No.
So I'd like to clarify.
It's kind of you to be on record.
Thank you. I'd like to know that. Thank you very much.
Does this make the podcast? That
Yeah.
comment does.
It
Okay.
does.
Yeah.
It does. It's going to.
She's gonna make sure.
But I think that's a great point to make at the end, is that you invest in students for the community college, making sure that they feel value.
Yes.
Then we invest in dual ed, making sure they feel value. We even invest in parents because they feel value with dual enrollment. And then Alabama Training Network invests in both the company and those employees by helping them feel value. And that nails it, because it's amazing the difference in these employees when you're working with them and our clients, and their beginning is starting to click.
Yeah.
And you can see them, like, they begrudgingly come in the first session, about like your third or fourth session, and they're really understanding, oh my gosh, this works. They come in with a whole different attitude.
Yeah.
So, and one of our newer employees, she comes with a lot of customer service background. And the components and the things that she adds to that, it's amazing to watch the dynamics of the room change to people that are just like, I can't believe I got to be here 2 hours early for this, to really engaging. That's when you know you're doing your job.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and you say that, but we are intentional in our delivery.
Yes.
Yes, we like to hire very skilled and talented people. That's priority. But we also want them to deliver in a way that we've set a standard. So we're intentional when we bring a new employee on, and sometimes it feels slow for a new employee to feel like, hey, when am I going to get to actually do what I was hired to do? But that's an intentional design to make sure that we've assigned them with a mentor, that they do some shadowing, and because poor performance is hard to overcome, and we want to be very intentional. But that you make a good point to kind of let me share that. Is it the process isn't accidental? It's intentional.
I like that. That's why we train.
That's why we train.
And we change to train from technology.
Although I've talked about technology a lot today.
Yeah, but it's not the same.
It's not the 1980s technology.
Yeah.
The word is completely different than what it.
Well, again, I guess if we're about to end this, I think the Alabama Training Network added complete clarity to who we were for anybody who looked at the name. And fortunately, ATN, that stuck. So we were able to keep ATN.
Yeah, that's fortunate.
It was great.
Yeah. Well, Keith, we appreciate your time today, joining us. And I heard you had a great dinner last night, so that's all wonderful. But do you have any last comments or questions that you'd like to leave us with?
I don't think so. I'm not sure what all I've said today, but I've enjoyed it. Thank y'all for inviting me. This is my first podcast.
Yeah, and hopefully not your last.
And hopefully you'll come back and join us again.
Only take 2 more years.
Yeah. Any way we can get it.
Our biannual process.
All right.
There's a lot more important people that can be here to hear from this. And I mean,
But you bring a lot to the table that, our couple of podcasts ago, we had the history. So I think this is great.
This is really good for you to be here at this time.
Because we did talk about why we were called Technology Den. And so I think this is a great way to further explain how we've grown.
And also to share insight on ACCS and your role with that and the different pathways. So I think that's all really good information that we can share.
I hope I did it justice.
Absolutely.
You did.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Thank you.